Hello, welcome to Conway Video. I wanted to do a video on a topic that I've been kind of interested in and curious about lately, and that is demographics. But I don't want to go deep into the topic of demographics per se because I don't really know a whole lot about it. I'm still kind of learning about that. But what I wanted to more focus on is connecting demographics with things like your choice of job, your choice of workplace, even your choice of technology. It's a connection that I think doesn't always get made, but it's an interesting thought. Demographics, I guess by that I mean groups of people and categories of people, and sort of clusters of people that tend to be located together, maybe in the same job or the same part of the world, and so on. And so I think you can already even see where I'm going with this. Um, when we think about the jobs we do, I guess like we get hired into a job because we want the job, I guess, and because also they want us because we have a certain type of skill, a certain quality of experience, and so on. I think demographics also can play into this. Certain locations, for example, so we talk about geography and geographic locations. Certain locations in the world attract certain people for various reasons. Those reasons can be things like citizenship, residency. So people have a citizenship or a passport or a residency, and that permits them to work in a particular country, a particular city, and so on. Another thing that can affect the geography is lifestyle and also people's life situations. So one area of the world might be more of a residential place, and it might have a lot of schools and have a population of parents and children. And so that area of the world, then the sort of jobs that you get in that place, whether it's like a city or a town or a part of a city, those jobs are going to also attract those sorts of people. And then certain companies are going to choose to locate in that area. And they might actually have a really good experience being in that area. And they choose to locate there for that reason because they get the right sort of worker that they want. Maybe they get a worker who is fairly steady and reliable, or some other reason, but something related to the demographics and the location. Another kind of location might be more of a zone where there's a lot of energy, it's very active, maybe it's the inner city or it's a big sort of metro area or it's a big sort of built up part of a city. It's a major sort of area and there's a lot of movement, a lot of people flowing in and out. There's a lot of activity, and a lot of companies want to attract people who have that energetic sort of lifestyle. Maybe it's a younger demographic, a younger group of people, but companies will identify that and have that as one of the things that they're noticing about that area, and that there's a reason that they're going to choose to set up there because maybe they want to attract that younger crowd. And then again, there's reasons they might want that younger crowd. Maybe that younger group of people has certain expertise. Maybe it's more likely that they'll attract a certain kind of education level or a certain kind of background of experience. Or maybe they want younger workers because they need a lot of hours to be put in, and younger people might have more time and more energy to do that. So I can see that demographics can play out in so many different ways, to the point that I think even cities can become known and have reputations. I think, for example, London and is definitely known as a right now at this time is it known as a place where there are a lot of financial institutions and there's a lot of fintech. And then there's also a high number of software developers in that area of the world. And so the sort of companies then that need that sort of expertise are going to locate there. Silicon Valley, again, it's a bit of a different place. I mean, there's again a lot of developers there. It is, I think, a different kind of work. Even as a developer in Silicon Valley, I haven't been there, but I've read and listened to and watched people who are working there, and I think it is a slightly different kind of work that they do, even though it's still software development. And of course, other kinds of professionals as well who are in those areas, their day-to-day work is going to differ just because it's maybe a different culture, it's a different demographic, it's a different kind of business and different kind of funding. I think even funding models play into this as well. So some businesses will be funded through venture capital, and in Silicon Valley, obviously, there's a lot of that sort of originating there. But there'll be other parts of the world where the funding is more maybe indirect, and maybe the funding there's a lot of established institutions that have been around for a long time, and so their funding models are different. The way that they do their capital is different, and then the way they hire and retain talent and choose talent is going to be different. So I think demographics can be interesting. And then I guess as on the ground, right, you go into work and you really notice this. You really notice who you're working with. Some jobs I've had, I've just noticed that everyone there seemed to have a big family. Everyone there seemed to be kind of mature, maybe in their 40s, 50s. Other places I've been at, people were a little bit younger, and so it was young families, maybe people in their 20s and 30s, maybe quite a few single people as well. Other companies I've been in, a lot of those people were on visas or were migrants. They were newcomers to the country, and so there's so many different situations where you go in there and you're sort of like a fish in water, where you might not, until you've worked at a lot of different companies, you might not actually notice how much that way of working is very specific to that location, that country, that city. And those sorts of factors. But I think that can be an interesting thing, and it's really exciting for me because it's sort of something where every new workplace that I find myself in, it's a bit of an adventure to see what sort of characters am I going to meet, what sort of people am I going to meet, and what kind of unique and different experiences am I going to have from that experience. One more thing I do want to actually add as well is the people who founded the company. I think they can also have a pretty big impact on who actually works at the company, because obviously there's going to be a network that they were in when they founded that company, and there's a network as well as the company grows of people who fund the company, who support the company in various ways, who pitch in. Maybe also certain customers are very close to the company. And so there's going to become this whole ecosystem, and the whole ecosystem is going to form around this company as it develops. And so I think that too can cause, demographics to be a certain way. Some companies that they have a very strong base in one country. Maybe it's like America, maybe it's India, maybe it's Australia, and so a lot of their people, the core people in that company, are going to be from that country. They're going to be from India, or they're going to be from Australia or Japan or wherever else. And then you'll notice that those people that you're working with, that they have that sort of background. And so I think it can be interesting. And also then I suppose after some time you can start to get a clearer idea of where you want to work. Because if you've worked in a few different environments, you eventually get an idea of, okay, this is the sort of demographic I would like to work with. This is the sort of group of people who I'll also get on well with, because I think that's a big part of the job as well. If you're working with people who have, if you have a large family and a lot of family responsibilities, maybe part of your job search should include trying to find other companies where the people who work there, not necessarily the owners of the business, but the people you work with on a day-to-day basis are in a similar situation to you. They've also got big families. Then you can all relate to each other. Maybe the hours will be lower, or if not, maybe at least you can all kind of relate to each other anyway. You can get on well with each other because you all kind of understand. You'll have that empathy for each other, having big families and knowing what that's like. If you're someone who is kind of really interested in a particular type of technology, you might want to be surrounded by other people who are also in that space. And then the demographics of the company and the location, you want to find out, where are the conferences, where do people who are into that thing, where do they get together? Not just online. I think we often assume that everything takes place online and therefore location doesn't matter, but I would say it's almost the opposite is true. Location is almost more important than ever these days, because it's just going to be much easier often for people who have a similar interest to work together in a close by space. It might not be in the same office, but it might be in, say, the same cluster of offices in a city. And so if you can find that place where you're working around people who are kind of generally in the same mental space that you're in and who want the same sort of things you want, then I think that can be a really good idea. That's something I want to think about much more. It's something I've been thinking about a lot already to date as well. Just thinking about, okay, if I want X, in my career, where do I find the other people who also want X? So how can I be in that same place at that same time with those same people? If I am, it's more likely I'm going to achieve my goal than if I'm just kind of all by myself, isolated in some different part of the world where that maybe isn't such a big thing. So yeah, demographics I think can be a really good thing to focus on and to think about when you're job hunting, or even when you're settled in a job. If you're thinking about why this job maybe isn't the ideal job, or maybe you're thinking about, well, why is this job good? What is good about this job? You can think, well, demographics is a factor. The people, the age groups, the culture, all this sort of stuff is definitely a factor. Thanks for watching.